Thanks a lot for the opportunity to present our validation study on the OECD test guideline 124 with the title Particle Size and Size Distribution of Nanomaterials in this stakeholder workshop on operational and financial aspects of validation. I will go through the presentation template and start with the first question. How and by whom was the validation study organized? The validation towards the test guideline 125 was organized through a cooperation between the Federal Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, BAUER, and the Federal Institute for Material Safety and Testing, BAM. An OECD expert group was formed to support the work. The test guideline contains methods that are valid for nearly spherical nanomaterials, as well as methods that are applicable for high aspect ratio materials, for fibers. The methods for these two kinds of materials were validated in two interlaboratory comparisons. The Federal Institute for Material Safety and Testing, BAM, performed the validation for the methods for particles, while BAUER performed the validation for methods for fibers. In my talk, I will focus on the BAUER part of the validation study. In the line below, the process of the test guideline development is shown. For the validation study, we first looked for partners, and we found these partners through the OECD member country delegates and the experts working together in the working party on manufactured nanomaterials. As a first milestone for both ILC, the draft SOP for the testing methods were written and discussed with the supporting expert group. Also, the proposed test materials were discussed. When we finally had our SOPs and test materials in place, the sample preparation took place in our lab, and the final samples were provided to the fiber ILC participants. We gave 2 months of time to the participants to perform the tests. Then the results were collected, evaluated, and discussed with the participants and the expert group. From the results, the validation report was drafted and discussed with the expert groups and the participants in several rounds. The validation report and the SOP were then the building blocks for the final test guideline. Question 2. How and by whom was the validation study funded? We were in the lucky position that we had funding for the validation study provided by the German Federal Ministry for Environment, BMU. The Federal Environment Agency, UBA, acted as project execution organization and organized the activities payment in the name of the BMO. BAUER and BAM received funding, while the ILC participants contributed without financial reimbursement. Yet all testing materials were provided to them free of charge. Now to the questions on the laboratory management design. How many laboratories were involved? Did they test all chemicals, or was the testing staggered? In our ILC on the nanoparticles and fiber form, we had 13 partners from 8 countries across the globe. Of them were 12 from research institutes and 1 from an enterprise. 5 fibrous materials were sent to partners, and 2 methods of electron microscopy, SEM and TEM, were involved. The partners chose the number of materials they were able to test, and not all partners tested each material. So in the end, we received between 6 and 14 results for the different test materials. How was the selection and procurement of the reference chemicals organized? We had, as I said, we had 5 materials, and with our material selections, we intended to cover the whole application range of the test guidelines. Thus, different material classes were chosen, as well as different sizes of fibers were selected. We even took care of the different width of distributions for the different materials. Each of the test materials was taken from a single batch, and all materials were commercially available. The shipment was done by standard parcel shipment service, and there was no need for blinding or anything in this study, but of course each sample had a sample code on it. Now we come to the main organizational challenges. When we brainstormed about the main organizational challenges, we found that issues related to the timing were the main organizational challenges. How can I get the information and the materials in time to the participants, as well as how can I get the results and comments of the participants and experts in time to us? So what we did is we started early, we expected delayed. We initially gave the participants 2 months for measurements and planned already from the beginning to extend this time. We also had one issue referring to the sample preparation, as one fiber material contained contaminants leading to unusual results. So of course it is important to have a careful sample choice and preparation. Then another organizational issue was that although we provided SOPs and instructions, still a few partners used wrong instrument settings or evaluation protocol. So the test materials needed to be remeasured or evaluated, or some of the received data could not be used. What were the main financial challenges? So of course the project partners need to find their own time and money resources to participate in the ILC. So partners with low budget tested only one or few of the test materials, and some potential partners lacked the budget at all and could not participate. Now we come to the conclusion, and we concentrated on the question what our suggestions for improvement are. So test guideline development and especially validation can be time and cost intensive. To support scientists and other test guideline developers, funding on the one hand tailored to the validation and harmonization of scientifically developed test method is needed, and on the other hand there is need for possibilities to fund participation in an ILC. It would be helpful to create incentives and show the benefits for validation and OECD test development to scientists and to industry. We propose that a network of ILC participants would fulfill several functions. So a close exchange between stakeholders would be facilitated, expert views could be exchanged, and priority settings toward test guideline development would be supported. An overview on validation study needs could encourage scientists to validate their test method and guide decision makers towards funding. And at the basis of all of that is a raise of awareness to the steps for validating an OECD test development process. Therefore, an easy, accessible information and training of on the steps required for validation would help. Part of these needs has been addressed in the EU-funded project NanoHarmony. Here, tools have been developed to raise awareness of the importance of the OECD test guidelines and to support their development. The slide summarizes the 4 legacy items that were developed within NanoHarmony to support future test guideline developments, and I would like to invite you to have a closer look at them. With that, I come to the end. If you have any questions, please use one of the email contacts given on this slide. Thank you for your attention.